Welcome to the One Day at a Time Recovery Podcast, where my guests share their stories of addiction, how they recovered, and the tools and practices they use to stay sober now. Well, Michaela, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Arlena. I'm so
Yeah.
excited.
Me too. I enjoyed being on the Two Sober Girls podcast so much. And I walked away from that conversation. I was like, oh, these are my people. You guys were like, I mean, let's just call it what it is. You guys are like super. I told my husband, I just got interviewed by these two supermodels.
Oh my, look at you. You're beautiful. Oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness.
But I was like, wow, that was like the least, I mean, that was the least of the attributes. I was like, didn't compare to like how beautiful the two of you are on the inside because I felt like we had such a loving conversation. I felt valued, I felt appreciated. And I was like, wow, that was really an amazing experience. So thank you so much for having me on. And I'm so excited to get into your story today.
Oh my God. Well, we feel the same way. I feel like it was such an impactful conversation, and we're like super aligned because we're into very similar things, but also in our own way. And I think,
Yeah.
this is why I love having these conversations, is because we get to just learn about each other and just really honor our own journeys, but
Yeah.
then really honor other people's journeys too. And
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful to be a part of. I love talking to you. I mean, we were just
I
talking
know.
offline. We are like, we wish we were recording. Like, let's do this.
I know. I was like, let me hit record before we say too many good things. But listen, I love that like in this time, this political climate where people are so divisive, I love that we can be different and still appreciate and honor each other's paths. I'm very 12-step oriented, but I'm not religious about it. Like
Mhm.
I honor all paths of recovery. And I'm really excited to hear about how you found your journey because you did not do the traditional 12-step way. And I think people are thirsty for it's
Yeah.
like, how can we get sober without 12-step?
Yeah.
Right? We need to meet people where they're at. And I think that's valid. So I can't wait to hear.
Totally. Well, what's crazy as you say that, I didn't even know that was an option for me. Like all the years of my drinking in my 20s, I and just the environments I was in, I've never heard anyone my age or um anyone in my circles or wherever, like that they're going to AA. So like that wasn't even anything that I thought. I knew that people go to rehab if it gets really, really bad. So that was my viewpoint. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, I'm not really, really bad. Like I can control things most of the time. And, so I didn't even know that was an option. And I
Isn't that
figure there's
funny?
a lot of people who feel the same way as me. Like I thought AA, because I did get a DUI one time, and this was like over a decade ago. Um, and they had me go to, I don't even know if it was an AA meeting, but it was something I had to do. And I guess it was a meeting because people were talking, and it was all like older people. They looked like I totally stick out, like this like
Yeah.
blonde girl, like into fashion, all that. I'm like, what am I doing here? And like I found it
Oh,
inspiring how they were speaking, but I couldn't relate. So I'm like,
yeah.
this isn't for me. I'm like, this isn't for me. Like,
Yeah.
even if I had an issue, I wouldn't feel comfortable coming here, just to be quite honest.
For
And so
sure.
I left there and I was like, oh, that's done. It was just like a task that I needed to do. And I never thought about it
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. Yeah, it is pretty common that people go there that are older. And I was 25 when I got sober and I started going to meetings and there was nothing else 30 years ago.
Yeah.
There was nothing
Yeah.
else. And I did go to I did go to some meetings where there were some older people there. But I felt safe there. Like I was with mom and dad, like these safe older people. Like I was really attracted to like the mother archetype
Mhm.
and like because they were so kind and loving and accepting and I
Yeah.
really was missing like that mothering kind of experience. And then a girl walked into one of the meetings and she was blonde and she was young and she had a leather jacket and leather boots. And she's like, I go to this other meeting that has a bad reputation. And I was like, taking notes. I was like, "Wait, where exactly is that, please?"
Yes.
Thank God. Thank God. I didn't know that that was a thing. So, but yes, if I had, I could see how if you walk in and you're like into fashion and young and pretty and all these, you're like, I don't relate. So, yeah, we need to meet people where they're at, I guess is the point. We need to
Yeah,
let people know that there are other options.
exactly. And everybody's journey is completely different. Like what when I heard your story, I was like, wow, like you went to that meeting and you felt like this peaceful feeling, like you felt like you were at
Mhm.
home, and
I
it's
did.
and I think that's really important, and knowing that
Yeah,
there are, even if you are looking for different communities, looking for different options, like it has to feel aligned to
yeah.
you and has to feel good. And yeah, there's work involved, but still that alignment piece is very important, because this is
Huge.
something that you're going to do and show up and do, you know, for a long time, if not forever, for some
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Before we jump into your story, I like to play a little game called the lightning round, which is
Ooh,
very slow, so don't be scared.
let's
Um,
do it.
yeah, listen, I am such a bookworm. I love consuming information and books I think are so transformative. I mean, for like under
Yeah.
20 bucks, you can gather information that can change your whole life. Were there any books that really spoke to you early in recovery?
So I mean, my sober curious journey began almost, gosh, like 18, 19 years ago. So almost 2 decades.
Oh,
Like at
wow.
around 20, I found The Secret. And so The
Yeah.
Secret, I know it's like so
Love it.
cliche,
I
so
loved it.
cliche.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I can create my own reality and all of these things. And, so I remember picking that up. And I think that's where my journey of exploration began. And it was a really sort of like private journey. Like I kept it like, I had these certain things that I did where I was like, I would go to Barnes and Nobles and read for a day, and then I would go out and party the next day. And so I lived these double lives. And like when I went to the bookstore or the library, I'm like, I didn't even invite anybody. I wanted to have this experience by myself with myself. And I guess it wasn't even with myself. It was with, connecting to something higher. It wasn't God at that point, but it was something like, oh, wow, there's something guiding me. And I felt supported whenever I did these things, whenever I was reading, whenever I started journaling. That got me into yoga. And so it was like this, like slow, very slow, ways to like a way to explore like this different world from like this 3D lifestyle that we live, and it's all about material things and what can we achieve and how do we look, and what do we eat and how do we exercise, like that was. And when I stepped into this like spiritual world, like that's where I felt safe, that's where I
Yeah.
felt supported and loved and guided. And I I do believe I have, I mean, I believe we all have spirit guides and this force behind all of these things. And so I was always guided. It was like the next book opened up, the next person that I met sort of like guided me to the next step. And I became a yoga teacher, so I got certified in that, and that got me into those teachings,
Beautiful.
learning about that world. And I was like, wow, like there's so many different worlds out there that we can plug into and connect. And I learned how to weave in and out of each of them, in a way that worked for me at the time. And it's not one of those things where you transform every single thing in a day once you learn these things. So even when I was learning those things, there are seeds that are planted, that I have planted in my mind and my soul, that perhaps are now sprouting,
Yeah.
almost 20 years later.
Yeah.
And that's how these things work, but we have to keep coming back to those practices. And I did it because it felt good, just like you kept on going to the meetings because you knew you were
Mm.
getting something out of it. You knew it was
Yeah.
bettering you, It was giving you direction. It was giving you this sense of connection, feeling grounded. And so, yeah, that was my entry point. And it was through that. So yeah, The Secret. Then I found Wayne Dyer. Then I
Mm,
found Esther Hicks. Abraham.
love,
Uh,
love all that.
love Marianne Williamson, Gabrielle Bernstein. I remember when her first book came out, like
Spirit Junkie?
Add More Ing to Your Life and Spirit Junkie. And I was like, that's a girl that looks like me. And she was talking
Yeah.
about spirituality. I wasn't connecting with her about sobriety at all,
Yeah. She
but
didn't really talk about it that much, I don't think.
she kind of did. And
A
what I
little bit,
remember
yeah.
is it planted a seed. So
Yeah.
while I was not getting sober during those times, I was like, there's a girl that looks like me, has
Hmm.
this lifestyle that I like because she was a promoter. And I used to, go to clubs in the city and restaurant. Like that's what I aspire to because I thought that's what would bring me fulfillment,
Hmm.
recognition, and joy. And I felt alive. Like
Yeah.
that's what I did for over a decade was just
Wow.
this like city life and traveling and, made friends with models and we would go travel all over like that's what I plugged into was like that matrix.
Fun. Yeah.
It was so
Yeah.
much fun, but it's not sustainable,
No, I mean, it's not
you
like you can
know?
eat candy every day, but pretty soon you start to crave something deeper. And I love what you
Yeah.
said about the planting the seeds because, there's this idea of I wish you a slow recovery because there is something beautiful about like you were taking in all these messages, even from the very beginning with like The Secret, and these ideas are like planted. And then when it's time, then you begin to flourish. And I love that you were able to, find, you just like were following the breadcrumbs. Love that.
Always, and I still do, and I
Yeah,
still do.
that's a
It
that's a
brings
beautiful way to live.
it brought me to have conversations with you, it brought me to start a
Yeah.
podcast, it brought me
Yeah.
to really have very intentional experiences in my life, and I always knew
Yeah.
I had that power to create. I mean, Arlena, when I tell you, like, we're all manifesting, right? But like once you learn about it and you're like, wow. And we actually spoke about this offline about, having these rituals and being really clear
Yeah.
what you want and tapping into that. I was able to manifest trips and money and this and that. And, it's not even about that. It makes it fun for me.
Yeah.
It makes it
Yeah.
fun, like playful, like you just said earlier.
Yeah.
And so I love to play around with these things. I don't
Yeah.
if something doesn't come tomorrow, I'm not like, oh, like it's not working.
Yeah.
No, it's just there's different timelines. Perhaps something wasn't truly meant for you. It's maybe not for your highest good and things like that. So
All right.
it's just so much fun to play around with that.
It really
And
is.
yeah, and books are a big part of that because, like you said, $20 to learn about somebody's ways to manifest or somebody's best ways to live the best life. Like, I just love that.
Yeah.
And I remember when I read The Secret, one of the exercises, I speak about this a lot because it's so powerful. It asks you to write down your perfect life.
Hmm.
And I wrote down my perfect life, and my life at the time was not that at all. I was like writing, I want to wake up at 6 a.m. and I want to have a smoothie and I want to have water and I want to exercise. Like I didn't exercise. I didn't eat healthy. I didn't, you
I think we
know,
had the same letter.
yeah. Yeah. But what's wild was I was like, wow, there's another like there's more potential. Like
Yeah.
there's different things that we can plug into. And so I had this letter and I read it, I think it was like 10 years down the line. And probably to the T, that was my life because it's
Isn't that
something that
amazing?
I aspire to be, and I talk a lot about future self-work and
Yeah.
becoming your best version of yourself. And it's not about becoming someone different. It's about we know that if we do certain actions and certain habits, we're going to be a different person. Like if I don't get good sleep and if I eat like crap the next day, my mood is off. Like I
Hmm.
just energetically I'm a different person. I look
Yeah.
different. I have different habits. And so I was like, putting those things together was like, okay, it's connected to the habits, it's connected to the thoughts, it's connected to what we focus on and our energy and who we surround ourselves with and how we organize our environment and where do we go. And it's so particular. And so I do believe we all need that best version of ourselves, like guide and get
Yeah.
really clear on what that looks like, and it's going to evolve and shift as we grow,
Mhm.
as we age, if we have kids, if we have businesses, if we want to
Yeah.
stay at home, like whatever it is, it's going to look different, but we need something to aspire to be, and it cannot be somebody that we're following on Instagram because that's not attainable, you know?
Yeah, and when you were talking, it made me think that, so often that, when we're growing up, we put on all these masks. We're trying to figure out what fits. And recovery for me was about emerging because it wasn't like I was trying to be somebody else. It's like I had been trying to be somebody else.
Right.
And recovery was about recovering my authentic self. And it was like an emergence. It's like, oh, I didn't even know who I was. Like I was so identified with my persona that I created that I actually
Mhm.
didn't know who I was. And when I got sober, that was my opportunity to like put down the armor, put down the mask, and allow who I was meant to be to emerge. And listen, I could go on and on about how much I love recovery. Let me
Yeah,
ask
but
you, let me ask
yeah.
you, I'm gonna shorten this a lightning round because I want to ask you about what made you get sober. But you're talking about practices that you have. We were kind of talking offline about like morning practices. I have some things I do to help get my mind right, to get my heart centered, to sort of shed the stress of the day before and be more intentional. What does do you have like a daily morning ritual, a daily practice? Are there things that you do weekly? What does that look like for you?
So I'm huge on rituals and habits, and
Mm,
it varies, honestly, because we were talking how we can get bored with certain things,
yeah.
but the foundation is the same. This morning and all mornings, it's like, as soon as I wake up, focus on breath. Like I'm huge into breath work and connecting to our bodies.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy if we don't for us to connect to just what's in our mind and allow that to run the show. And that can feel, if you struggle with anxiety or depression and you're just connecting to the thoughts that you're having and you're not really filtering them and you end up believing them, like, again, that forms a different identity, different human. So I'm really intentional before I even do anything physical to connect to my breath, connect to my body. Gratitude is a big one. And these
Mhm.
things, like this practice that I do every morning, it's like, and I do it with my daughter most mornings, is just thinking of three things that I'm grateful for. So you could do like
Mm,
three deep breaths, three things that you're grateful for, and three things that you want to feel today. So just tapping into, like, I knew I was going to have a busy day. My daughter has a half a day. I have another client after this. I'm baking bread as we speak. Um, hung out with my boyfriend this morning. We did yoga, Pilates, had coffee. My days are so full, and then, I have stuff with my daughter later and dance and dinner. So usually it's to feel peaceful
mhm.
while I do these things, which gives me a way to be connected to every single task that I'm doing, being completely
Yeah.
connected here, being
Yeah.
completely connected with my daughter. And that feels really good in my body. So when I say peaceful, I don't just say peaceful, I feel peaceful. So, like, I
Yeah.
want to feel peaceful. The other thing I want to feel is healthy. So
Mm,
my routines are aligned with feeling healthy. I don't just say feeling healthy, I feel it because my actions, my habits are aligned with that.
mhm.
Um, with being peaceful, my actions align with that through the breath work, through many moments of meditations, through, sitting down with my tea, breathing in, through reading, through just having conversations that I want to have. And so that brings me peace. So, like, these feelings that I sort of aspire to be, are already who I am because I was very clear about the type of person that I choose to be, and it's peaceful, it's healthy, and it's very um I wouldn't say motivated, but that's not the word that I'm trying to say. Productive, because I like
Mhm.
to feel productive. I like to know that I'm doing things and
Creative and
create.
yeah,
So that's all. Yeah. So creative, motivated, all of those things kind of fall under that umbrella. And what does that look like? Well, it's looking at my schedule and making sure I'm not overbooked and making sure that I love all of the things that I'm doing,
yeah,
and it's making sure that I'm making an impact in the world. Like that's really important to me.
right.
So being of service. And so literally just connecting to those thoughts first, bring those emotions and feelings. And that is what drives my day. And I get up, I tongue scrape, I brush my teeth, I use the bathroom. I love coffee in the morning, but I have water before I have my coffee. And then I read. So I've read every morning, oh, I don't know, for 15 years, like very long time. It's just who I am.
Ooh, I'm
Um,
such a reader too. What are you reading right now?
right now I'm finishing up Atomic Habits. So I started a book club for our Sober
Girl,
Girls
sign me
Mastermind.
up for your book club.
Yes, yes.
Atomic
I'll
Habits? Are
pop
you
you in there.
kidding me?
And it's
I
it's
love
it's
Atomic
very, like,
Habits.
informal, like, we are
Yeah,
kind of all like, we're reading similar like, same books, and we're kinda just, like, we'll say chapters 13, like, "Whoa, I never thought about it this way," and so what I like about it is I get to see the book from, like, somebody else's perspective and how they're
yeah,
applying it,
yeah.
and so that's nice. So I'm wrapping up Atomic Habits, which I love.
So
Uh,
good.
and I realize I do a lot of these things, which is like so
Yeah.
cool. You kind
Yeah.
of like are like, oh, I got this, but it's so nice to like read the studies and know why these things work and how our human behavior works. Like that's really important. Like we all need to learn these things. Like
Yeah.
I feel like people are focusing on like, what should I eat? I was a health coach for a long time as well, but like, what should I eat? And it's like, no, let's look at the mind and let's look at
Mhm.
why we do the things that we do and subconsciously like, does overeating bring you some peace or does it give you joy? Like, and then when you find other things to like healthier options for those things, like then the overeating falls away versus me telling you do not
Exactly.
overeat and do not do these things, right?
It creates
So
resistance. Yeah.
yeah, and your mind needs to sort of know why and then work
Yeah.
with it and give it something else, that you're looking for, like those feelings that you're looking for. And it's all about exploring and getting to know yourself.
You have such good instincts. Can I just tell you, I had to, pardon me for jumping in, but like
Yeah.
when you were talking about what drives your day, you, things like service, to me, like I like clicked into that because when we people are getting sober, they're driven by needing to resolve pain. And that is a great like jump start, but
Mhm.
it's not a fuel source that's sustainable because we start to take the actions that make our lives better and then we feel better and then the thing that motivated us disappears. And then what
Yeah.
drives you, right? And you mentioned wanting to have an impact, creativity, service, that's also rooted in love. But that is a sustainable source of motivation. And you talked about it driving your day. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're totally on the path of sustainable
Mhm.
creativity and motivation. Like that
Yeah.
is something that'll carry you. And I think a lot of people, especially like diet culture stuff, it's like you get motivated because you're dissatisfied, but then you do all the things, you lose the weight, you become satisfied, and then you stop doing the
Yes.
things.
Yeah, that was the same thing we
Yeah.
talked offline about manifesting. You're
Yeah.
doing these rituals and
Yes.
you end up manifesting these amazing big things, and because they
Amazing things.
come, you almost get cocky and you're like, "Oh, it's just gonna come forever." And then you're like, "Wait," like you stop and then that stops because you're not connecting to actually what you desire and that feeling that you want to have.
I got confused, to be perfectly honest. Like I would get relief, like something would happen. I'd be like, oh, isn't that amazing? And then relief. And then I
Mm,
stopped doing the thing. And then
Mhm.
it was like, oh, I need to be careful about what I say I want to manifest because stuff happens. So I'm like, oh, let's be really intentional about what we're
Yeah.
manifesting because it was almost like too much. Like, because
Yeah.
even when you get the thing you want, like there are no solutions, only trade-offs.
Mhm.
I didn't come up with that. I just heard that recently and I was like, I forget who quoted it, Thomas, somebody with this, it was like an economic person.
Mm.
But
That
I
makes
was like,
sense.
right, yeah, there's only trade-offs. So even when you get the thing that you want, there's responsibility tied to it. So you have to be prepared to deal with that as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and the responsibility is you sometimes have to almost become a different person, different identity,
yes.
different actions, different thoughts. And
Yeah,
so I love transformation. I like
me too.
it's like my love language, you know?
Me too.
And
But
so
yeah,
yeah, it's
transformation
fun.
is really, but really in the sense of becoming who we were meant to be,
Yeah.
like fulfilling potential.
Yeah.
And I should ask you, I don't know if you had this experience when you were young, but this idea of, oh, you're not living up to your potential, like in a shaming way. Did you have that? Yeah. That's how we get to be
Yes.
overachievers, right?
Yeah, well, I got really lucky. My grandma, I remember, was always telling me, like, you're special, like, you have something special inside of you. And that really sparked something that is still with me till
Yeah.
now because I
Yeah.
believed it.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Have I had other thoughts and comments about my yeah, and now looking back, it's like, oh, when I believed those things, my life was completely different. So
Yeah.
why not believe that you're amazing and magical and you have superpowers and you're loving and all of those things? And I get to instill these practices within my daughter. I am the closest person to her. And so, I tell her all day, every day how amazing she is. And I know there's conflicting data on that because you're like, oh no, people are just going to become cocky and this and that. But I don't believe so. Like, I want her to love herself. And I
Yeah.
want her to know she is powerful. And I want her to know that
Yes.
she has magic inside of her. We all do.
We
We
all
all
do.
do. And
Yeah.
if somebody is not telling that into to your life, and it doesn't matter what age you are, like, wouldn't you want to feel that? But the thing is,
Yeah.
most of the times we have to remind ourselves, and that's why I do like reading books like A Return to Love, or, those sort of books where it reminds you your potential and who you truly are, because we forget.
We
We wake
forget.
up and we're bombarded with negative messages. Most people are so negative about themselves and about life, and you're just like, yeah, and it's so wild. Our culture is not designed for wellness or mental health or positivity. It's like we have to create it.
We do.
You and I, we've created that. Our life, where we almost live in this bubble where it is wellness and it is beautiful connection to God, or your highest self, and all of these practices. And it's like it's almost like a machine, and we're creating this energy by ourselves. But majority of people outside of that are creating the machine of fear and worry and sickness, and subscribing to just horrible things.
Yeah.
And as we know in Course in Miracles, like only love is real, and
Yeah.
anything outside of that is an illusion, and in a 3D world that does not make sense.
Hmm.
But when you tap into the true world, because we are spirits, living in this human body. And when we tap
Yeah.
into that, it's like, oh yeah, that is a delusion. It's like hallucinations.
Exactly. Hallucinations. Yeah. It's false evidence appearing real.
Yeah.
It's no wonder that alcohol is called spirits. It's a false sense of this connection that we're really seeking.
Yeah.
I'm curious. We're on a sober podcast. We're not really talking about drugs or alcohol because that's really not that's really not the problem. But what led you? Did you have like an event that, Dark Night of the Soul? You talked about when we were talking earlier, I don't know if I heard that right, not necessarily having a bottom, but what was it that led you to decide that you needed to let go of alcohol?
So, yeah, when I let go of alcohol, which was basically almost 3 years ago, um, I I've had rock bottoms in my life,
Hmm.
a lot of rock bottoms, and I never associated them with alcohol, and I was always able to crawl my way out through, I don't know, like, just always being guided and always protected. I mean, I lived a very unsafe, like, life in my 20s, the stuff that I used to do, the people I hung out with, and yeah, so many rock bottoms there, and, but funny enough, when I decided to actually quit for good, I was able to, like, I had a beautiful life. I had my career was growing. I was a mom, wellness routines, all of the things. I was able to just have a drink maybe once or twice a month. And it was like, it was never in excess. And what I realized was even doing it that way, which is like the perfect way, or it's, this is how we're supposed to drink and this is
Like
how
you
we're
were
supposed
managing
to live.
it.
I was like, this still feels like crap. I
Wow.
was like, it just didn't feel aligned. The less and less I drank, it just, whenever I would hold a drink, I just energetically felt off.
Hmm.
And I took note of that. It's like we have to take notes of that and not make it like, oh, this is just part of life. I realized like I'm choosing to do this
Yeah.
whenever I go out to eat. I'm choosing to do this when I'm with this certain person. I'm choosing to do this, you know. So when that last drink came, I that wasn't even my intention because I was quite happy with my consumption. I was like, I got this. But it came and, the champagne or prosecco came and it was like a knowing of like, this is your last drink, you can finish it. It was truly like, I don't know, God or whatever. But it's all the work that I've done prior to that, that to know that that's
Right.
even possible.
Yes.
Wayne Dyer, whenever I listened to his speeches, he would always say, I'm 20 years sober, I'm 30 years sober. Without my sobriety, I wouldn't be able to write these books and I wouldn't be able to be who I am. And that always replayed in the back of my mind, even when I wasn't ready to give it up, because I just was like, oh, I can still manage, right?
Right.
When I got really truthful with myself, I'm like, I can't manage because I know my full potential and I'm probably living at 50% with
Ooh.
what I can achieve, the person I can be, even with 1 to 2 drinks on a weekend, which were
Mhm.
fabulous. And, I was safe technically.
Mhm. Mhm.
I still felt off energetically for the next 3, 4 days, whether I felt depressed, whether I had anxiety. I didn't follow up on my commitments. I'd be like, "Oh, I'll send that email in 2 days." And then just the to-do list just kept on piling up. And I would get some of the things done, but I was like, what if I just remove it all, And I just started to play around with that reality. And so when that drink came, it all of the seeds and all of the knowledge and all of the practices, because I was very into wellness. I have been for the last 15 years. Everything just collided, I feel like, and everything just
Yeah.
got aligned and was like, okay, so now this is your identity is you're not going to drink and you're going to figure this out. And the person I was next to, I didn't say this to because it was literally happening as we're having a conversation. So it was like kind of just like this like thing that
Out
was
of
like,
body experience.
yeah, and I'm sitting there and the voice told me like you can finish this drink if you want, but this is your last one. And at that point I was like, I don't even want to finish this. So I remember I left like half a glass
Wow.
and the person I was with, they're like, "Do you want another one?" And it's like, "No, I'm good." And I kept it very private because I was like, I need
Yeah.
to sit with this of like, what does this actually mean? And so we finished up
Yeah.
the dinner. I came home and I was like, my identity was like literally shifted, like all of the things. And so
Wow.
it wasn't until 3 months and I don't even remember, I don't think I told this to anyone because I was just still trying to, like, figure out what that looks like for me, and, I wasn't going out as much at the time, and every time I would go out, I would just politely decline. I didn't say I'm sober. I just said,
Mhm.
"No, thank you," and, figured out different conversations, like all of the tactics,
Yeah.
tips that we give to people
Change the
to
subject as
change
quickly
the
as
subject,
possible.
and yeah, like go to the bathroom and deep breaths and whatever. And I didn't have a community. And I remember when I met my co-host Erin at a wellness event, and
Oh, is
we
that how you guys
yeah,
met?
we met, yeah, that's how we met. And we just it was like, it was meant to be. And one of the
You guys
biggest
are
things we
great together, by the way. Oh
thank
my
you.
God. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so
I'm so
great.
blessed. We're so blessed. And
Yeah.
we connected on the wellness piece, but what truly connected us was the sobriety, because I was 3 months sober and she was, I think it was like 2.5 years sober. And it was like, oh my gosh, another person that like is like me is
Yeah.
sober. And so, we ended up, we started to work together in different ways. And we would just have these daily conversations about how amazing sobriety is. And so that
Yeah.
was the start of my community. And I was like, we have such different stories because, I was a party girl and all of those things. I just like all responsibilities kind of like fell out the door. And the way she was drinking, she was,
Same.
a suburban housewife
Mom. Yeah.
drinking, and that went out of hand. And I was like, whoa, that's different. Through AA, through detox, rehab. And so I was like, I feel like the world needs to hear these different perspectives, but like at the
Hmm.
same time, we meet at the same point. We want
Yeah.
wellness. We want to feel amazing in our body. We want to look good. We want mental sharpness and clarity and to feel alive and to create and to love what we do. That's always my biggest thing. I also do some
Yeah.
business coaching and when I have some time and working with people. And I was like, do you know, like you can have any life that you want? Like, what do you actually want? What kind of business
Yeah.
do you want? How do you want to wake up and spend your day? And what kind of clients do you want to work with? And, you know, just like we design our life in sobriety, we get to design our life in, the work that we do and the
Yeah.
relationships that we have. And tapping into how powerful we really are. And
Hmm.
we don't have to complain, because if you feel the need to complain about something, you have the power to fix it.
Right.
I know
Complaining is
I don't
poison, by
complain
the way.
because I'm like, who am I? Like, I have the power to change anything, you
Yeah.
know? And truly that's the work. And that's the work in life. That's the work in sobriety. And what alcohol does is numb you away from knowing that you have that power,
Yeah.
because it just energetically blocks you from all of these beliefs that you can have about yourself. It's like, no matter how many times I exercise, no matter how healthy I ate and journaled and meditated and read the books, when I decided to drink on a weekend, I started from scratch
Yeah.
every single time. And so now I don't start from scratch. I progress, and I don't
Yeah.
go back. Yes, do I have days where I sometimes fall back? Yeah, I do. But like I actually, the other day I sent a training to my group, to my sober community, and I was like, today I'm just really freaking tired. And I just let myself rest without the guilt and without the shame and just like, oh, why are you so unproductive? And that was like a whole different experience. And it's like, let's connect
Yeah.
to that identity for, especially as women, like we need rest. We need to just
Yeah.
be and not do all the time. I feel like, um, getting into that masculine feminine talk, like that was my work over the last like 6 months, is like really learning the energetics of becoming more feminine. And I'm a very feminine person, but
Hmm.
I'm also can be very masculine in terms of like doing and
Same.
strategizing. And,
Yeah.
it
Heart charging.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah. But leaning more into, and, even flowing with that in my relationship, because when I'm more in my feminine, my partner then can be masculine. Where
Yeah.
if we're like, no, I got this, I do, we're cutting off our partners or men in our lives to be the heroes and be who they are here to be on planet Earth. So that kind of like spilled over into that as well. And that's been fun because now I feel more rested than ever, and I'm like, everything is still getting completed and
Yeah.
done. And I'm coming on time and I'm having these, I just feel amazing,
That's
Yeah.
really the goal, right? Like you're living in your authentic self and you're being able to acknowledge that you have needs. And I think as women, it's so easy to fall into this trap that we don't have needs. Like we don't get angry, we don't have sexual desires, we don't get angry, we don't need to rest. It's like we
Yeah.
are so accustomed to denying our
But
own
who's
needs.
doing it to ourselves? We're doing
We
it to
are.
ourselves. Nobody's telling you you need to do these things and
We are. Well,
you
there is don't you feel like there is a little bit of shame and expectation,
yeah.
that, women, I feel like there's a disproportionate expectation that a woman fulfill like the primary caregiver role as, do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if, a career, like I have a client who's a doctor and, and she wants to have a baby and her colleagues are like, well, what about your child? Don't you feel like you need to be, there's like shaming, they're
Mhm.
just the mere fact that they were questioning her about her commitment as a mother if she has a career. And she's like, nobody said that to you when you had kids.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's just expected that women are like the primary caregiver. And I
Right.
think it's so great. Like, this whole conversation is about intentionality and acknowledging that we have needs because we need to communicate that in relationship. We first need to acknowledge that we have them. And
Mhm.
then, desires, all that stuff, we need to acknowledge it and then communicate it and not
Yeah.
expect people to read our minds or do for us the way we would just step in and do for others without being asked. It's just so important to like be intentional about what it is that you want to create through from a place of joy.
Yeah. And on a practical level, it's like, what does that look like? I believe journaling is one of the greatest tools we all have, pick up a pen and paper
Huge.
or your notes app and just spend time with yourself. I I saw, I think it was a Sophia Loren interview, and it was like a little clip of like her saying, "I love being by myself. I love talking to myself. I love asking myself questions and I love making plans with myself." And I was like, that's what it is. Like that's
Yeah.
so beautiful and energetically what that looks like. It's like she does not give a shit about what anybody else thinks of what she does.
Yeah,
And I
she's the OG personal development person.
right, and it's so simple. Like,
Yeah,
learn to be by yourself,
yeah,
first of all.
yeah,
I mean, isn't that what sobriety is too? I mean, yeah, it's community, but it's also like, let's figure out what's going on inside, and let's figure out how we're gonna work together, and what we're gonna do, and what we aspire to be, and what do we
yeah.
wanna create, and what kind of lifestyle do you wanna live? Because it's very different from a drinking lifestyle. Even if
You know,
you're moderating, your life is
yeah,
going to change.
yeah,
Spending time in solitude and, if our mind tends to race and
yeah.
and it goes to like, "Oh my gosh, I gotta
We're
actually do
so
this," or
overstimulated.
"I gotta do laundry," and then, next thing you know, you're on the couch, like, scrolling the last 20 minutes because, it's like
Checked
but
out.
that's why I feel like with journaling, you're kind of forced to be in this, like, tunnel vision with yourself,
Hmm.
and, you can set a timer for 10, 15 minutes. You can have a prompt. You could just free flow. It could look different every day, but just spending that time with yourself um, is crucial. And I believe it's like, it, it's helpful when you are starting a meditation practice or to to maintain a meditation practice because you're sorting out through these thoughts and feelings.
Yeah,
You know your direction, you know your goal, and then now you get to sit with it and tap into the feelings and visualize what that will look like and ask yourself questions. And uh it's essential we do that every day because our body, our system, our brain is not designed to do that naturally. We are
right.
designed to be distracted all of the time. And then how do you think your body feels? How do you think your soul feels? How do you think your mind feels when it knows it needs that time and it needs that direction? Makes such a
Yeah.
difference.
Makes a huge difference. When you were talking, it reminded me, you're talking about a relationship with self. And, we're both fans of Marianne Williamson. And I think it was in A Return to Love where she was talking about this relationship And, she was so upset that this guy didn't want to spend time with her. And it occurred to her, she's like, he doesn't want to spend time with you. You don't even want to spend time with you.
Yeah.
It's like we need to
Yeah.
learn how to validate ourselves. And I feel like self-compassion is so important through this whole process because it's so easy. Like those of us who had like a long, you know, dark relationship with alcohol, I incurred a lot of self-loathing and
Mhm. Mhm.
self-hatred. And so, a return to love or return to innocence was about forgiving myself for all those ways that I was acting out through my survival skills, which is really what my
Yeah.
drinking was about. But then, starting to cultivate this relationship with self and understanding that all those survival skills were there for a reason. And
Yeah.
so that was sort of my path to having a relationship, to giving myself what it is that I was seeking from others, like
Yeah.
learning to give it to myself.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what completes you. It's not another person that
Yeah.
completes
Yeah.
you. Like once you learn that and give yourself what you need, truly, like externally, things can happen. And you just, again, going back to the feelings that I want to feel, is I can still feel peaceful.
Yeah.
I could still feel, what was the other thing I said? Peaceful,
Creative,
healthy. I can still
healthy.
choose health, right? So when things happen outside of me, I can choose peace, like
Hmm.
peaceful thoughts, breath work, maybe meditation, maybe a little journaling, maybe some self-love talk, maybe some mirror affirmations, reading a book. I can still choose health. I
Hmm.
can tune in into my body. I can, make delicious teas and drink water and eat my protein. Like those things I can do, those things I can control.
Hmm.
And then the other thing is I can still be productive and I can still be of service. Things are happening outside of me that perhaps let's say a tragedy or something happens, I could still be of service
Yeah,
and have those things. And I think that's my foundation in all things in life. And it's just, yeah, it's just shifting to that identity every single day until it becomes who you are, you
absolutely.
know.
Yeah.
Becomes automatic, because I will tell you, like, um, being at peace was not like those things that I just mentioned, those 3 things, I was never doing that. Like, my past life, I craved chaos. I thought chaos was normal. Just
It's
the
fun.
dysfunctional household that, I grew up
Mm.
in, like, I just thought that that's what life is, and that's my life, and that's what I'm dealt with, that's what life,
As
like, gave
normal.
me. And health, it was like I never really prioritized it because I thought I was not athletic. I thought, yeah, I can eat a salad, but I didn't really feel healthy. I didn't have a healthy body image. I had eating disorders in my
Mm.
like late teens, very early 20s. And it was through yoga and spirituality and learning new ways of living. I I recovered by myself. No therapy, like
Mm.
nothing. I
Yeah.
remember like it just was gone.
Yeah.
It was there and then it was gone.
That's amazing.
And then with the productivity, I didn't prioritize that. I prioritized fun. I prioritized instant gratification. I
Yeah.
prioritized, um, just the wrong things. And we need that direction. So I recommend your listeners to find those 3 feelings and allow them to be very different from each other. And then once you find your feelings, it's like, what are the actions to get that feeling? Like I mentioned, it was the
Mood
breath work.
follows
It's the
action. Yeah.
right. So for that productivity of getting stuff done, of being of service, what does that look like? For me, it's like really becoming your own personal assistant and working with your schedule and, setting up your future self for success and like, putting out your clothes, workout clothes the night before, like just setting yourself up for all of these things,
Yeah.
and it gives your brain and and body and life like a direction. We need a direction
We
always.
do. Yeah. We
Yeah.
need to be growing and evolving always.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Well, listen, we could obviously talk all day. We probably are gonna have to
Yeah.
do this again.
Yes. Yes.
But tell me, tell the listeners. So you have the Two Sober Girls podcast. I'm going to leave links to everything in the show notes, including your Instagram, Health with Michaela. Um, is that what is the name of your website that has like? Because on your website you have coaching, you have
Yes.
a group. Where do people find that?
So healthwithmichaela.com is the website. You can pretty
Okay.
much find all of the things there. If you are looking for coaching, whether it's wellness, business, sobriety, you can just DM me on Instagram at Health with Michaela.
Okay.
And we also have a sober community called Sober Girls Mastermind, which is truly what keeps me sober, healthy, and just in love with life because we
Yeah.
cover everything, not just sobriety. Like we've had women with us for over 2 years now, and they're obviously sober and we go deep. Aaron and I drop trainings weekly. We also have a weekly group meeting. We have a daily chat with like 20 different rooms on different topics from, I mean, like all the things like wellness routines to meal inspiration to spirituality to
Mhm.
gratitude. We have a prayer room if you need to drop in a prayer,
Oh, I
AA,
love
because
that.
Aaron is, big into
She's
AA
12 step. Yeah.
wellness. We have a I mean, it's just very and it's just constantly growing and evolving as we do as well. And it's a lot of fun because in my day-to-day life, my family, my friends do not live this lifestyle and
Yeah.
I need to be plugged into it
Hmm.
because I need to hear people's wins and I need a
Yeah.
place where I need to share my wins and recognize like all of the growth, that we've all done and continue to do. And like, what are we doing today? What do we focus on? Yesterday, I dropped the training on energetics and how we have the power to choose through focus. Like, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on lack? Are you focusing on the past? Or are you focusing on all of the beautiful things that you have and the present moment and the future?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just having conversations and ideas and ways to expand your mind and your life. So we do that through the mastermind. And, we're going to have, we have amazing speakers once a month. So we're going to have you on in
Yay.
April. And that's all part of the membership. And again, even with that, it's focused on the peace, it's focused on the health, and then it's focused on that transformation, that productivity, for all of us.
Love it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, productivity, creativity. I love all that stuff. Have you ever read The Artist Way, Julia Cameron?
No, but I have done her method, the morning pages. Yeah, like there's been a few different periods of my life where I have done that sort of
Yeah,
stream of consciousness writing, and I find it
yeah,
really beautiful.
yeah,
And, now looking back, like you just realize like where you are at in your life with, when you're doing these things, like your thought
yeah.
patterns and just really, yeah, love her work. And it's so simple, right?
So simple.
So
Sh
simple.
You know what made me think of it is she really presented this idea that really has stuck with me all this time about creativity is the creator's will for us.
Mm,
Like following that path of joy, being creative, because I feel like, those of us that are like achievement junkies
yeah.
are, then we start thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so achievement oriented. But just a slight turn of phrase, like from achievement to creative, feel
Yes.
like, did you like
Or
feel the
service.
difference? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I do it
There's
all the
a
time.
difference in energetic impact when, because I love a challenge. I love that I like the achievement, but it's really not the achievement I like the striving,
Yes.
which
The
if I could,
journey too.
yeah, if I can focus on, but if it feels more positive and loving if it's about creativity and service and impact rather than goal achievement.
Well, talking about masculine and feminine energy, you just described that really well. It's that like that feminine. living in your feminine is to be creative, to just
Creative.
be, to lay back, to allow inspiration to come to you. And yes, there is inspired action.
Yeah.
And then that masculine, it's the striving, it's the achieving, it's the levels. It's like it's a completely different focus. And as women, for men, it's fantastic
Yeah.
because that's how they're designed. We're not designed that way, but our society sort of
Mm.
curates it that way, and we that's why, so many women feel depleted and overwhelmed.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're doing what they love, but it's coming from a different lens.
Yeah.
And, I just had a past client reach out to me. She's like, "Oh, I'm feeling stuck in business." And I can't wait to get into this with her because, this is the conversation we're going to have. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's what lens are we going
Yeah.
doing these things?
Yeah.
It's
What's your
meant to
motivation?
yeah, it's meant to flow. It's meant to feel exciting and good. And once you attune yourself to that frequency, the action just like, oof, like you have the energy running through you, time is going and it doesn't even matter. And you're just like in the flow. And,
In the flow.
we all have that power to tap into that.
Yeah.
It's a slight
Yeah.
mindset shift. Yeah, makes a
Yeah.
big difference.
What a beautiful place to sort of wrap up. And listen,
Yeah,
I could talk to you
me
forever. I would
too.
love to have you back. We'll have more conversations, and I can't wait to come
Definitely.
and speak to your group in April. That's my recovery month, so I'm always like in this like self-reflective mode in April, so that'll be super fun.
As you should. 31 years. It's like, it's
Yeah.
incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
I'm so
Like a
lucky.
yeah,
Yeah, I feel so blessed. It's like I don't know why, I've long like let go of deciding why some people stay and why some people don't. Like
mhm.
I think believe it's rooted in trauma, but I'm just so grateful that I got to stay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and it's setting up yourself for success is huge.
it's
In all
huge.
different ways, and from environment to routines to working on your mind, self,
Yeah,
connect, it is
huge.
healing, but it's also just like, where are you going? I feel like a lot of times we're in this space of like, it's a lot of healing. And then what happens? It's like we're reliving, right? So there needs to be a time where we just like pause on that and just
Yeah,
let's focus on what we are creating.
seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right,
Yeah.
my friend. Thank you so much. It was so good to be with you today.
Thank you.